Hi, I'm Scott Humphrey, CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, and this is Leadership Live. And I'm so excited to share this week's word with you. We are on the letter N, and this is a word I've been wanting to get to because it's a word that, when it's implemented correctly, can change your now and change your forever. It's also a word that I see leaders struggle with more than any other. The word is no, and it simply means not at all or to no extent. No is a powerful word. In fact, many of you have had your life shaped by somebody telling you no to something that you attempted to do. Maybe that was a positive in your life, maybe it was negative. I can tell you for many people, the old example of flea training where you put fleas in a jar and they jump up against the lid and hit their heads, and eventually you can take the lid off the jar and they don't jump out anymore. Why? Because they've been told no so much that they believed it. There are times that no is a negative, depending on how you adapt to it. But I want to talk to you about using no as a positive in your life. In fact, I would tell you that many leaders struggle with the word no, and they take way too much on in their life. In fact, they don't have people that work for them. They work for their people because they refuse to delegate down, which causes their employees to delegate up. I would tell you that leaders who always say yes, they're not leaders. They're simply people on the treadmill going through the actions day to day. And they, in a sense, whether they realize it or not, are saying to their employees, I don't trust you to do it. I'll just do it myself. And by the way, employees don't stay with employers that do not trust them. I mean, the reality is our world has been changed by people who were courageous enough to say the word no. Abraham Lincoln said no to slavery. Reagan said no to walls and to communism. Rosa Parks said no to discrimination. Martin Luther King said no to violence. Jesus said no to religion binding you to a certain way of doing things versus a relationship. Mother Teresa said no to her wealth and took on a life of poverty so that she could serve others. Henry Ford said no to the old way of putting cars together and to living based on a prevailing wage when he dared to pay his people more. Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison said no to being defined by their learning disabilities. Colonel Sanders, Walt Disney, Elvis Presley, Steven Spielberg all said no to believing the rejection that they received. You have power, and it comes in two simple letters. Those letters are N-O, no. Here are some things that I would challenge you to say no to. Say no to being defined by your failures. Say no to settling. Say no to mediocrity. Say no to having to do it all yourself. Say no to living up to other people's expectations. Say no to unhealthy relationships that bog you down and bind you back. And say no to procrastination. Start saying no to these things today. Finally, I would tell you this. Say no to anything that causes you to die. That's right. It could be a habit, anything that is leading you to destruction and not to a positive outcome in your life. I would challenge you to say no to that. It was William Wallace, you've heard me say before, who has the famous line, every man dies, but not every man lives. I want you to say no to anything that causes you to die. It could be a slow death where you're just going through the motions and living in the rut. Or it could be a health issue like smoking or drinking or anything that to its extreme is causing you to take on the process of death versus the process of life. I'll finish with this. There were three guys that were in a motivational seminar, and the leader asked them to turn to each other and say, what would you want people to say if they were standing over your casket? And one of them said, man, I'd want them to say that I was a great person. I did a lot of good things. The other one said, well, I'd like for them to say that I was a wealthy person, that I acquired much in my life. The third one said, I'd like for them to say, hey, he's still moving. Listen, say no to anything that has a negative impact on the person you want to be. Begin with the end in mind. See who you want to be. What's your purpose? Say no to anything that distracts you from that. And then go out there and lead.